get in. I wonder if I know any of these
Bruno,
people.
Bram. All right, hello everybody.
Wait, Bram? Who's Bram?
Bram Spiro.
I don't think I know that guy. I knew a Bram.
All right, so we got Sam Parr here this evening. 5 o'clock Central Time, and we've been down there for the week. Had Thanksgiving with these guys yesterday. A wonderful time. So, Sam, we're going to do a little bit of a quick fire thing.
Okay.
I think a lot of people know Sam's background, but we'll do like a 5-minute overview of your background and
Can I turn this a little bit so I can lean back?
whatever you need.
Yeah. So I can lean back. There you go.
All right, you'll lean back. So, I was going to say I'm gonna put a link to an early podcast I listened to with your full story, My First Million, before you were doing it with Shy.
Oh yeah,
So that's like gives you the whole context. But I wanted to talk a little bit about some different stuff today. But if you could do a 5-minute thing, background intro, and then we'll go into some more specific stuff.
Yes. So I run this company called The Hustle. We have close to 2 million subscribers, and people sign up for us to get their business news. And we send an email every single day, and that's kind of what we're known for. We also have Trends, which is our paid subscription service, which is not like terribly different from this, but different. It's different, but not the same. It's similar, but not the same. And then we originally started I started a conference called HustleCon. So I had another business before this that was a roommate matching app, and I left Nashville and moved up to San Francisco to start a startup, and that was the roommate matching app. And it was kind of like Tinder for roommates, and we should have just made like Tinder for Tinder, because that would have been like way better. But it was like Tinder for roommates, and had a very small acquisition. After that, I was looking for something to do, and I started a conference called HustleCon, and it was kind of like a TED Talk, but for entrepreneurs, and it was really just a way to kill time for me. I was like going to search for a new business to start, and I thought I could like lure all these people who are founders at this event, and I could learn from them and sell tickets to finance the event. And around this time, I was studying copywriting. I taught myself how to be a copywriter, and I used my copywriting skill to sell the tickets. And unexpectedly, that first year, it made like a $300,000 profit, which I did not expect. And I was like, well, I don't want to host conferences forever because I don't really like that business. And I don't think it's a good business, and I don't enjoy it. But it's kind of fun, but not if it's like your main moneymaker. And so we decided to launch The Hustle. And the premise with The Hustle, I stole the idea from an article that I read about SoftBank. You know SoftBank? We'll let this guy in.
Yeah, nice.
SoftBank is like that huge conglomerate from Japan. They started as like a magazine in Japan, like a PC magazine in Japan, and they would see which advertisers performed best, and then they would launch companies similar to that, or they would invest in companies similar to that. And I wanted to do that with The Hustle. And so the premise was, let's build up this huge audience of engaged people, provide news to them and build trust with them, make profits through advertising, and use those profits to launch more businesses. And we're 4 years into that journey.
And that audience came off the back of the original audience that you built up for the event business, correct?
Yeah, and that was only about 10,000 subscribers. So it wasn't like huge, but it was a good start. And
one of the most interesting things, like I think the combination of the copy as a skill while you're growing HustleCon, the thing that fascinated me most about that, I think you talked about this in one of the earlier podcasts, is like how you managed to build relationships with the people that would speak at HustleCon.
Yeah.
I think that like arbitrage opportunity was the launch pad for this whole thing.
Yeah, it was. It was cold emailing. So I was a copywriter, like a self-taught copywriter, which means I was like only maybe okay. Here, we'll let this person in too.
Sure.
And so I would use my copywriting skills to cold email people, and like I used to ask myself this question, and I still do, which is like, what's something that I can exploit now that in like 50 years we're gonna be like, that was crazy. I can't believe like that was able to happen. And so like, for example, like maybe if you used to cold call in like the 1950s, I don't know this, I'm just making this up. If you used to cold call in the 1950s, like that was like a good opportunity. Like, you know, like there weren't that many cold callers or something. Like telephones were kind of new. That's kind of what email is. Like, you can pretty much email Mark Zuckerberg if you want, and you could probably, if you spent enough time and were clever enough, you could probably get him to reply.
Yeah.
You know, like even Hillary Clinton, she was in the news for all this like email stuff. She was just using Gmail.
Right, right,
Like I
right.
could have just if I like it was probably like Hillary R. Like you know, I
Yeah,
could have like guessed her email probably and like gotten in touch with her.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's kind of crazy when you think about it. And so I just learned how to cold email, and I just would cold email all these people to come speak. And a lot of them sometimes would say no, but even when they said no, I would like write these cold emails in such a way that I would become friends with them.
Mm. And, like, could you talk a little bit about like because you at that point in time have the offer to them is you can be a part of this event that other
Which was
people of
nothing.
your caliber may
Yeah,
be
and
attending.
the event wasn't that prestigious, and I was a nobody. But I would, what I promised them was a lie, but it came true, so it wasn't a lie. But basically, I would invite like 16 people, and I would send an email to each person and be like, "These other 15 people have confirmed.
All right, all
Are
right,
you in?" And often it would work out to where they all would confirm.
right, right.
But uh, that's kind of like what I would do.
And the events business, you ran that for like two,
Well,
three
we still
years,
had it pre-COVID. We'd still made 7 figures a year from it pre-COVID.
but it's not on. You're just not doing it this year.
No, I don't know when we'll ever do it again. I got you, brother.
Go on. Let me come back to this. So the building of the Hustle event business became the newsletter, and that transition from you as the one person who was reaching out to people to get them to speak. How did the team grow to support the
When we first started the company, it was when I say we, it was me.
right?
So I was the only employee for the first year. So when we made when we did these events, I got you. It's okay. When we did these events, it was just me, and I would have friends volunteer, and I would maybe give them like $500 for the day to like work the event, but it was just me. And then I hired two people. One was like a designer, and one was like this woman, Kara, who just did a little bit of everything with events, and I just kept writing.
Oh,
Um,
there we're in.
that
We're
person's
good.
in already.
We're good.
My
Yeah,
bad.
yeah,
Sorry.
good.
Uh, and that person was just a writer,
Mm-hmm.
or just sorry, there was a designer and a. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. People are trying to check in. I'm trying to let everyone
My
in.
fault. My fault.
Um, I was the writer and like the CEO, which meant I did everything. And then we had a designer, and then we had Kara who would help me host events, and that was like the first two hires. And then we hired three more writers, maybe.
And what's the tipping point in the event business where you're like, I see another opportunity for this thing? Like at
After
what
the first
point?
year,
Yeah, 1 year.
it took 1 year. It took the first event. I had the idea for the first event on May 10th, and then I hosted the first event on July 1st. So there was about a 6 week lead time, and that first event made like $60,000 in revenue, and my costs were only 10 grand. And then I took off and I rode around the country on my motorcycle for like 10 weeks. And then I got back and I was like, all right, I guess I'll host this event again. And I did it again, and that one made like $250,000. And then that led me to around June. Then I kind of started building the business. And then another 10 months later is when we pivoted to be the hustle.
Right, right. And the other like line of questioning on like both the event and the hustle content, what was it that drove you to be like to both position this as an interesting opportunity for the speakers and like the content of the hustle being like business news driven? Is that like a curiosity you've always had? Like how do you monetize that?
I read the biography of Ted Turner. That's the guy who started CNN.
Okay.
And I felt like I related to him a whole lot because he was like a southerner, and he was very untraditional, where he got accused of being like kind of obnoxious and a big talker and a big mouth, and I'm kind of like that, where I like to like talk a lot of shit and like act like bring it on, I'm gonna kick your ass, like,
Right.
we're gonna crush you, and like marketing, like boisterous. I'm definitely like that, and I identified with him, and I was really inspired because Ted Turner, he started CNN, and it was pretty much nothing until 1989 when they covered the Baghdad War, the first war, and it kind of changed culture. Like it was the first time that people had seen war live on TV, and I thought that was really inspirational. That like someone's business could use content to kind of change cultures and change sentiment. And I was really inspired by that. And I thought, well, if I can use my words to convince people, to convince strangers to give me $300 and fly across the world to attend this event, I bet I can use my words to do a lot more interesting stuff. And that's when it was like, let's try news.
And the copywriting skill is like learned like to build the HustleCon event series?
No, I learned it before.
Why?
Because I was lived in Nashville, and when I was in college, I owned a chain of hot dog stands called Southern Sam's. Wieners as big as a baby's arm. That was like our slogan. And in order to like sell more hot dogs, I like had to like do cutesy like marketing shticks, like wieners as big as a baby's arm. That was like a shtick. And I just realized that I'm good at selling stuff and like being like cutesy and whatever. But with the internet, if you just write something one time, it's like your course, build once, sell twice. If you can write something one time and sell it to, or like get it read by an infinite amount of people, and if you just change your words just a little bit, you can convert 3% instead of 0.1%.
Right.
And that makes significantly more money.
Yeah, that's
why I got really interested in copywriting. And then I was like single, and I was like, wow, I was kind of goofy and weird, and I was like, well, I want to meet girls. I want girls to like me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I can use this copywriting thing to help me like rethink how I can persuade girls to like go out a date with me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I used it for everything. Like I used copywriting isn't necessarily just words used to sell a product or service. It's understanding what motivates people and communicating it to them. And it just so happens that it's typically done via the written word.
And like, how do you think about the distinction between like persuasive copy and the like media that you produce?
It's all persuasive. Like I'm still trying to persuade something. Like I'm trying to persuade. I mean, like if I'm trying to just do an objective news story, I guess I'm not trying to persuade, and I shouldn't be trying to persuade. But I'm writing an opinion piece. I'm trying to make someone feel something, or I'm trying to get them to buy my argument. So it's very similar. Or I'm trying to persuade them that my brand is trustworthy.
Right.
And that sounds like manipulative, but it's like the New York Times says this. They're like, look, like we went and did all this research. Here's what we did, so you know. It's like it's still like all similar.
Yeah, it's like the layer of persuasion, right? The persuasion as a direct marketing tactic is like the most obvious and brash use of persuasion, but then you have like, over the course of 3 years, we write a certain way to build a reputation with a certain type of person.
And I'm trying to persuade you that I'm a reputable person.
This is an email that you should open every day because this is what you can expect.
So, and I just realized that like if I can't code or if I can't do what you do, like design, I better get good at something. And I just realized it could probably be persuasion, because if I can persuade other people to do the work for me, like work at my company, and I inspire them to like want to work here and do good work, then that's like way more scalable.
Yeah, and how do you think about transferring your skill set to other people, or like scaling the tone of something like that? Because it started as you. This is something that I personally have a like hard time letting go of too.
Yeah, I think I have a hard time doing it, and we've like hired a CEO of the company, and like we've done a lot of stuff. But originally, I was like you, where I was like, no one can be as good as I am.
Right.
And there's a few things where I don't think anyone at my company will ever be better than me. But there's a lot of things that I thought I was going to be the best at, and there's people that are just way better.
Yeah.
Or at least they enjoy it way more, and they're good enough. And so I would much rather have a good enough person who can get the job done, and I not have to worry about it, than me perfecting it and having to like sweat it. Because I don't write the emails at all anymore.
Right.
And I love that.
Yeah, I bet. There's got to be some satisfaction to that.
Yeah. So I read a lot of books on delegation, and that taught me how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people like. I would say the majority of people in this community are either like super small teams or individuals, and the barrier to scale is like letting go to something.
Yeah, and that's just a personality defect.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's not the reality.
No, it's true. It's absolutely true. Yeah,
it's not the reality.
You're just hanging on to a
mean?
lie. Yeah, for sure.
Like you got a company, like the biggest company in the world is definitely Apple, and it's like originally driven by Steve Jobs, but like he's dead. He don't work there anymore, and they're still kicking ass.
And you'd be waiting 12 years for an iPhone if he was building them himself.
Yes. So like you can scale anything.
Yeah. That's fascinating.
Or you can scale a lot of stuff at least.
Like creative work, I think is the one thing that there's even more of a perceived barrier. It's like, well, how do you? But there's the hundreds, thousands of companies that do it
Yes,
incredibly well, like The Hustle does every day. Yeah.
And I would say we do it good, but there's like probably better examples. But yeah, it's definitely can be done. It can be done. I think that it's just a mental barrier.
Yeah. So Hustle, you were running that solo for what in terms of the product?
So originally it was HustleCon,
Yep.
and I did that by myself for 10 months. And then I took the $350,000 that I made in profit, and I went and hired a couple writers to help me launch the Hustle.
Got it. And then Hustle, you launched another product off the back of Hustle. Is that last year?
Called Trends. And so right now we make money in 3 ways. We used to make money through events, but that's not really a thing anymore. And we make money. We make tens of millions of dollars a year from advertising in the email.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have we're knocking on the door of an 8-figure subscription business with Trends. And that's going to be worth way more than the Hustle.
Why?
Because it's subscription revenue and it's badass.
Yeah. And that slight direction, like that slight pivot in the way the content is curated or produced or presented, like I'm fascinated with this. Like the Hustle is a free product, but it's incredibly well researched. There's a lot of energy gone into producing that every day. Trends is the same idea, but like you say, the model is just tweaked to the point where somebody is subscribing to like a different format of that content, and there's a community around that too. Yeah.
It's significantly it's researched better, more well researched. I don't know if that's a word, but
right.
It's more well researched, so it is worth it. And I actually think it's significantly undercharged. Like we should have like done it for businesses and charged $50,000 a year.
Yeah, like I come. My background is like consulting, and you see something like that, it's like these guys are charging how much for this? Like,
so
crazy.
we're actually gonna redo it. We're gonna keep it as it is, but we're gonna have like a higher end version. And then we have like these things called guides that are coming out. But the whole idea with Trends is like we want to be like your spy and go out and find cool shit before anyone else knows it's gonna get popular. And we want to deconstruct different companies, because I think there's a lot of value in figuring out how other things work, and then you could steal the best parts and apply it to whatever you want to do.
And you think that, again, that feels to me like something that is you scaling the way you see and think and helping other people think that way.
That's what we used to do. So when we were looking at which company to launch, I created an Excel spreadsheet and I read tons of biographies and I used a ton of research tactics to figure out exactly how companies work and where the opportunities are. And I had this massive spreadsheet where I was like, so look, there's this one company called X. They make about $100 million a year. They do it by doing this, this, and this. In year 2, they did this much revenue. In year 4, they did this much revenue. And they grew it by doing this, this, and this. I think we can apply that in this way by doing this, this, and this. And I would show this to my employees and to my investors and my friends, and they were like, "Oh, fuck that, dude! Launch this." Because I was like using this to figure out what to launch.
Right, that is the product.
And they're like, "Just do that. That's awesome." And so I still have all these spreadsheets that I use. And they're like, "That's awesome. Just launch that." And I was like, "People will pay for this?"
Yeah.
And they did.
Well, I actually had that written down here, like opportunity versus focus. So like the act of going through that process, like as the way to discover an idea to launch versus making that the product is something I think is super interesting too. Like a lot of content businesses function that way now.
Like what?
The idea that like your process of like taking the burden of research off someone and going deep diving into all of these different industries, as opposed to I'm doing this research, I'm going to try and launch this business, I'm going to fail and do something else.
Yes. Yeah, we thought yes, exactly. And by the way, is anyone here interested in media businesses?
Raise your hand if so.
Raise your hand if so, if I can try to see some. Because here's the thing about, there's a couple people. Here's the thing about media businesses. Most of them are run horribly. They're all idiots.
Right.
Most of them are idiots. It's a bunch of mediocre companies copying each other, and most of them are fucking idiots. And I am an idiot sometimes, but I work my ass off at figuring out what they're all doing and being like, yeah, let's not do that. They're so stupid. Like, they undercharge. How are you gonna, like, Vox Media, you know Vox?
Yeah.
They ask for a $1 a month donation. This is a company that has raised $200 million in funding. How the fuck are you gonna build a big business doing that? Yeah. You know what I mean? And like, if your product is any good, don't ask for a donation. Ask for money.
Right.
Charge people. Like, that's how, like, if a mechanic fixes my car, he doesn't ask for a donation. He provided a service. Somebody gave them $100, whatever. Like the way that the media companies operate, it's so stupid. So if you have a content business, don't run it like that. Run it like a software company or like people who are actually making money. Because a lot of people in the media industry are so stupid. It bothers me. They for some reason they think that they should spend all this time working their ass off to provide value for their users and not charge money for it.
And then there's some like mystical thing that's going to happen in the future. That's
yeah, I'm
going
like,
to
what are you thinking? Like, just charge for the shit that you're doing.
Right. Do you know L2? Do you know that company?
Yeah, Scott Galloway.
Yeah, that was like a premium media B2B thing.
$300 million.
Yeah, super smart.
Yes, I think that's a great. I'm ripping him off.
Right, right.
No, he's that company's an inspiration.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think it's like I think a lot of people hold that mentality of like, I'm just gonna like build this runway and get enough attention to the point where, you know, at some point in the future, some event is gonna happen.
Crazy to me. And not all advertising businesses are bad. Like, you're gonna have the Morning Brew guy on. They make money through advertising, so he'll disagree with me, and that's okay. Everyone can have their opinion. I just think that advertising, if that is the only way you're making money, is it's not. I don't think it's fun to run that business. Mm-hmm. I think it's not necessarily good for the customer, and I don't think it provides like a significant amount of value for the world. I think that the way that you should run your media business is that advertising is only part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the content becomes the product, and you test the quality of the content based on how many people are going to hand over money to consume it on a consistent basis. Yeah, it makes total sense. The next thing I want to talk about, because I think there are a lot of people who are like super interested in content businesses, media businesses, and I wanted you to tell that story. I forget the specifics of it, but the punchline was "do it again 100 times." Does that ring a bell with you?
Oh yeah. So when we first launched, like in our first month, we had like 1 million people come to our site. But like I had already blogged for years prior to that on my own personal blog. And with content, it's just like coding, but like people were like, they ask me all the time, how do you get popular? And I'm like, well, one great way is you get popular on Reddit. Write a blog post that's geared specifically towards a certain subreddit that has your ideal customer and post it there. And some guy asked me that question, he asked me how to get popular, and I told him that, and he goes, okay, I did it, now what? I said, all right, I'll do it just like 100 times this next month.
Right.
Like, you got to do that a ton of times.
Yeah.
And with content, you have to produce on a regular basis. I mean, like, even with your business, you don't need to make courses all the time, but you need to be relevant and produce shit on a regular basis. Just like if you're building an app, you gotta like update the code or whatever. I mean, I don't know anything about that, but I imagine like you gotta like produce.
Right. There's no like, we're done now.
Yeah, you need to write hits. It's not like you're gonna, there are one-hit wonders, but if you want to be relevant, you gotta write hits on a consistent basis.
Yeah, especially if you're like, your success depends upon traffic you can bring to yourself.
Yeah. I mean, you just got to be a hit maker. You can't be writing deep tracks all the time.
No, right. B-sides.
Yeah, no B-sides here. we write hits.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. So, like, I think one of the things that I have gotten from all of our conversations is like the scrappiness of every venture of yours, from the hot dog business to the hustle to the like even trends now and everything else. Like, it's still super lean compared to.
It is lean, and it's compared. I mean, we have a pretty good business. I think that it could be $100 million a year company in the next handful of years. But I think that like I've always been scrappy and lean. I actually don't think that that's always been healthy. I think it's good to be like that in the beginning, but like if you can build a machine that turns $1 into $5, what's the next logical step? You get a dump truck, you fill it with as much money as you possibly can, you back that dump truck up, and you pour it in that machine.
Yeah.
Right? And when that's what we did with our business, is like we had a machine that makes a lot of money, and I would still be frugal. And I'm like, why the fuck am I doing this?
How did you change your mind?
I think that like when you grow up poor, or like when you don't have money, you're like, oh, I'm gonna be homeless. I gotta save money. And then I got to the point where I'm like, wait, like I can make money by spending it.
Right.
Like I built this machine. It turns dollars into more dollars.
So you kind of have to take the leap of faith with the first couple of hires or the first couple $100,000 you spend, and then you're like, shit, light bulb goes off. let's pour
Yeah,
more
you're like, this
gas
works.
on this.
It
Yeah.
works. Just do more, do more, do more. It works wonderfully. And,
Yeah.
I was just, and so I'm out of that mindset a little bit, and I've hired people who are definitely not in that mindset. But like, you guys can't see it, but we're in our office, and it looks like shit. It looks horrible. It's because my employees took that mindset that I had, and that actually was a massive mistake I made. I should have told them they don't all have to be scrappy all the time about everything.
Right, spend some money.
Spend some money. Yes.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think this obviously is like at an individual level. That is like, it depends is obviously the answer in every case. Like when you should spend more money, but like
You have to know when to invest. Yes.
but the notion of like the content is resonating, like, you know, like the formula on the front end is working. So it's
working.
like that's the thing that's the difficult nut to crack, and then money behind that is
Yes.
like all the rest of the shit gets
Yes.
figured out.
It's like, if it's working, just do that. That's that. Do more. Do it. What is it?
Do it 100 times. Do it again 100 times.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, it's working. Like, it's like when we grew to 250,000 subscribers just through me blogging. In our first year, we got to 200,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
And then we started doing paid advertising, and we went from 250,000 to like 600 or 700, and then 600 to 700 to like 1 million. And it took me forever, and I should have spent more. So to build the hustle, right? So when I started the hustle, I started with $350,000. I could have started it with $5,000.
Mm-hmm.
To do what we did today, even though that was only 4 years ago, it would cost you millions.
Right.
Because it's so much more expensive now to advertise on Facebook. I should have pounced on those opportunities I had 2 or 3 years ago, and I didn't. And it has cost us tens of millions of dollars in potential revenue.
And that would just translate to like
New
the
email.
size of the list, which
Yes.
would translate to bigger advertising revenue.
Yeah, and so we made the decision early on. So Morning Brew, who's going to come on, they have 2.5 million subscribers. We have 1.5 million. The reason is we said, I hate this advertising thing. Let's focus on trends and do a subscription business.
Yeah.
And they said, well, no, let's just go all in on this thing. And so they actually spent all that money to grow, where we diversified. And neither is better or worse. It's just different. But like, that's just an example of we didn't go all in on something.
Right.
Kind of like what your tweet said today of like, eliminate options.
Oh yeah.
Eliminate options and focus, and it'll go further.
Multiply results.
That was,
Yeah.
and that's what happened.
Yeah. So, what do you think? Like, because there aren't. We talked about this the other day. There is Morning Brew, and there's the Hustle, and there's like.
I don't think anyone else.
There's nobody else like remotely close.
Well,
to
there's
that.
us two, and then the Skim are like the only
Right.
3 businesses of our scale.
And like, I'm just fascinated by. I remember the first time we met in person, we talked about this. Like, it would be incredibly difficult to start this now. Like, at least in the same
To do it as fast.
niche or do it as fast. And you think that's just because like fatigue of content and how many subscriptions somebody subscribes to?
I think that still has a lot more. Like, people talk about newsletter or subscription.
Fatigue or
Yeah, I'm like, I don't think that's real. I'm like, there's 6 billion people in the world. There's almost 400 million Americans. Like, there's enough room for a lot more.
Okay.
And there's always room for better or different.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a lot. I mean, I do think it's more competitive though. It is more competitive, but there's still room. It's just going to be a lot more expensive.
And like, I guess it's hard at the time to be like, what is it costing us to not grow at this speed? Like, in hindsight, it's easy to look back and be like, oh, what if we'd have spent this then? Like, is there anything else that comes to mind, like things that you look back at now and you're like, if I'd have known what I know now a year ago?
I wouldn't have raised money.
Okay.
So we raised $1 million. I wouldn't have done that because when you raise money, I owe it. It's my duty to provide a return to them.
Mm-hmm.
Anything less of trying is potentially even against the law, right? Like, if I do something that hurts, I'm a shareholder. If I do something that hurts the shareholders or benefits me over them, that's like, they can sue me.
Yeah.
They should sue me. That's wrong.
Right.
I wish I would have owned 100% of the company, and I never, ever, ever would have sold it, and I would have owned it for 100 years.
Right.
That's what I would have done.
Yeah.
If I could start over again.
And
Because I didn't need to raise money. I had a lot of money from my events and from my other stuff.
right.
And I did it anyway.
The dump truck. You had your own dump truck.
I did. But I didn't have the confidence.
Right.
And I was obsessed with like appearances.
And yeah, that's the other interesting thing, right? The connotation of having raised capital being like some validating thing. Like people
Yes.
trust this enough to put money into it.
Yeah.
But now, like you see where that money is spent and who raises money. It's like it's not impressive anymore. Right?
It's
You
not
can raise
as
money
impressive.
with a couple of slides and
Right.
a good pitch.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that's a regret that I have. But it's okay. It's going to turn out okay.
Sure.
This is going to make us wealthy. This is going to make the investors wealthy. I mean, more money. Everyone's going to win. But my incentives should have. I wish my incentives were different. I wish I could own this business I wish it could be a family company and I give it to my kids.
Got it. Okay.
That's what I wish.
Yeah. And how big can it grow?
I mean, the New York Times makes $1 billion a year. It could get that big.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I still find it like, I find this nuts. I was talking to Celia about this before we like drove over here. I was like, the fact that this company came out of your apartment in San Francisco, I'm assuming, as like a bunch of blog posts and then a couple good decisions and like you register a domain and you just hit an inbox every day. It just like absolutely blows my mind because infrastructure wise or how a customer experiences those two businesses, like the New York Times and the Hustle, there's really not a ton of difference.
Yeah, there's not. That's the cool thing. Like the thing about media, so like this should change your opinion, or this changed my mind, and I'm gonna try and change your people's mind. The media business is interesting. It's different from all the other businesses. If you're I'm trying to think of a company who's a Salesforce. You're in the business of making salespeople software and selling it tons and tons and tons of times. If you're the Hustle or a media business, you're in the business of building trust with potential customers and then launching a variety of different products to capitalize on that attention. So it's like, isn't it kind of weird? Did you ever in a million years, well, maybe back then, you never would have believed that this guy making this Mickey Mouse cartoon would have cruises, would have a park with themed, or like a theme park, or dolls, or what does Disney own? Or doesn't Disney own ESPN?
Yeah, they own like an absolute enormous amount of TV networks.
And it all started with a mouse cartoon.
Yeah.
That's because the idea of a media company is you just capture attention and then you launch lots of different things to capitalize on that. That's inherently, for me, very interesting because if you have ADD, you could do anything.
Right.
So like, this is why Jay-Z, I was just reading about Jay-Z. What is Jay-Z? Jay-Z's a billionaire.
Yeah.
He has a clothing brand. He has a drink company. He has, I don't know what else he has. Whatever he has. Like that's
record
what a media brand
labels,
is. You just launched a ton of different shit to a like-minded audience, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's like you could rephrase it as you have an attention brand, right? You have the ability to aggregate attention, and then you can channel that attention in whatever way makes sense.
Right, and so the Hustle, the idea is we have this group, we have millions of people who give us their attention and trust us every day, and they rely on us for business news and information, and our brand stands for like helping people create businesses. Basically, the idea is we believe it's possible that everyone can kick their dent in the world through business and building companies.
Yep.
Whether you're a founder or you're at a company, like you can contribute to the world positively by building companies, and we want to give you the tools you need to do that. So when you ask how big can this be, it's like, it could be an infinite size. I mean, it could be massive. It could do whatever that means. So you have to ask yourself, like, well, what can we launch? Well, we could launch a chain of hotels. We could launch a WeWork competitor. We could launch a software that helps people do email marketing. Like, we could launch anything, I guess, if we could pull it off.
If it aligns with the interests and the like the trust or the relationship that you've already built.
Right. So it's like, this could, at worst, this is going to be a company that makes $30 million a year off advertising and subscription. I think that's a worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Because we already are at that. The best case scenario is it becomes like the next Oprah or the next CNN or, you know what I mean, or the next huge media conglomerate.
And have you always thought about the potential at that scale? Because I think that's like an inch you have. Because I'm like, the thing that has fascinated me about like the little increments in scale that comes with building an audience is like, I started the visualized value thing purely as a way to like make a couple $100,000 a year with consulting clients, right? Like, how do I like legitimize my consulting business and like have attention generating assets on the front end, and then like you start to hit different milestones. You're like,
Yeah,
wow, this
like,
is a really stupid use of my time at this point.
right, right. Well, when I was like graduate, so I did my hot dog stands. I would make like $500 to $1,000 on a really good day, or I would make like $50 on a shit day.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, one day I bet I can make $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
Right. And then when I remember, I was like, should I take this account? I got like there was a job offer. I studied business, and like there was like a job fair at school, and it was like for an accountant job that paid $50,000 a year, and I was like, damn, that's a fuck ton of money. I was like, yeah, I could just be rich off 50,000 a year. But then when I started HustleCon, I remember I had the founder of WeWork backstage. It was me, the founder of WeWork. It was this guy, Tom Bilyeu, the founder of Quest Nutrition, which was doing $1 billion in sales.
Yeah.
It was this woman, Payal, I think Payal is her name. She started ClassPass, and then it was Casey Neistat.
Right.
And then I was there.
Yeah, yeah.
And I didn't say shit. I just was sat and listened. And my takeaway was like, these people, like there's like literally $10 billion in that room. And they were bitching and complaining about how hard it is and their self-doubt and all this stuff. And I was like, these people are not smarter than me. I mean, maybe they're a little bit smarter than me, but not $10 billion smarter than me.
Right.
They're just,
that's fascinating.
they just like went after it. And that's when my mindset changed. I'm like, oh, anything's possible. And they had the same self-doubt. I remember I had the founder of Instacart backstage, and he was like complaining about like this thing. And I was like, man, I had you on a pedestal. I didn't think that you would complain to me about that shit.
Right.
And he was. And I was like, oh, okay, like you're fallible. Like it's possible. And it kind of gave me the confidence that I could do pretty much anything. It's just a matter of do you want it?
Right.
Because a lot of these people are miserable.
Yeah, yeah. Sure. I mean, at that scale and with that amount of scrutiny and
just because they're like rich, that doesn't necessarily mean that like
they've got everything they want. Right.
So I don't think it's a matter of can. I think it's of want.
Yeah, I think that's like on a smaller scale, like experiencing, like just being able to get in touch. Like I read The Hustle for 2 years before, we knew each other, and it's like, how did this come about? Like sitting in the office, it's like you have these like really weird extrapolations of people where you're like, oh, they're not gonna. The first line of this conversation, basically, like you could email Mark Zuckerberg if you tried hard enough, right?
You could.
Yeah.
It's like, and I think that living in San Francisco, and maybe you living in New York experiences, but living in San Francisco, like I've met like these people that I read about, like Tim Ferriss. I became friends with Tim Ferriss, and he was my hero. And I was like, this guy has everything figured out.
Right.
I was like, he knows everything. He's rich. He probably gets every girl. He is fit. He looks good naked. I'm like, this guy has it all. And then I meet him, and I'm like, oh, you're a flawed individual just like me. Thank you. Like,
yeah.
So it's the cool part about being in San Francisco is I got to meet a lot of my heroes, and I got to eventually call myself buddies or acquaintances with them, and it kind of normalized success.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the internet is doing that, like, even if you don't, if you're not in those pockets of, like, physically located around people like that, I think there are plenty of people that will go and, like, speak into a camera and be like, if I can do this, then you can as well. Just put your head down, like, and just keep, do it 100 more times.
He was showing me this picture of a car show that he went to in the Hamptons where he was, like, working before you were, like, doing this stuff. And, like, you meet those people it costs $1 million to join this golf club, and you meet those people, and you're like, this guy's a fucking jackass.
Yeah.
He's not that special.
Yeah.
I can crush him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just, like, it kind of normalizes it when you're around these people, I think.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And, like, the democratization of, like, opportunity and, like, I think a lot of the things that I've learned from just observing what you do is... even subconsciously, I think, influence some of the visualized value stuff where it's like you have this like captive pool of attention. If you can throw something appealing into this thing, or if you can make somebody care about something, they're already there waiting to consume this stuff.
You can do anything.
Yeah. And if you can like consistently get people to pay attention to you, like you say, you can direct that attention in whatever direction you want to take it. If anyone's got any questions, by the way, whack them into the chat and
We're sitting a little ways away from it. Can we bring the computer closer?
Yeah, let's slide it.
I don't know how to. Me and Jack and our wives and our families had Thanksgiving together, and I introduced them to this thing called Topo Chico. Amongst the four of us, I think we drank, I'm not joking, about 40 of them last night.
If
Yeah.
anyone knows anybody at Topo Chico, yeah.
I've drank so many of these in the last 2 weeks since I discovered it. It's crazy.
All right. There's Hey
We
Bilal, you know Bilal, right? You did
Yeah. Oh, hey, brother. What's going on? He texted me. I'm sorry. I have to reply. We had a Black Friday sale, and I got like 1,000 messages, so I was a little slow.
Well, here's a question about your Black Friday sale here. How much did the recent email on the Black Friday?
It, uh, so I'll give. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, we sent out this Black Friday email Thursday, I think, and the email said the subject was like needs approval, urgent, and the body of the email said, "Hey team, I'm about to send out our Black Friday deal. Can you please click through the links and make sure it all works out well?" And I actually sent that to 250,000 people, and like it was clearly a joke. And all these people were, a lot of people thought it was serious, and that I was like, "Oh my god, you sent me this. This was supposed to be an internal email only." And we did that because when I was with Jack and Celia, they were like, "Are you guys doing a Black Friday deal?" And we were like, "Not really. We think we'll sell like 200 subscriptions, maybe." And they're like, "No, you got to do this, and you should do it this way where the prices increase." And we were like, "Fuck it, let's do it." And we launched it within 30 minutes, and it will make us north of $1 million in subscription revenue. I mean, it's going to crush. It significantly outperformed everything else we've done. So,
Scarcity.
props to Jack. And and by the way, I do have to say that I stole the idea from someone else. I'm not that clever. So it performed really, really, really well. I had investors, friends who replied to me, and they're like, "Dude, you sent this to everyone. You effed up. You messed up." And I was like, "No." I was like, "It's a marketing thing. Like it was a joke." And so it performed so well.
All right, there's one up here we missed. Are you going to start buying other publications as a way to grow?
No, but we bought other businesses. So me and some partners have bought other businesses to grow. Different business. I've bought other companies before. Buying other publications, yeah, eventually, maybe. I don't know. I never thought about that, to be honest. We could. So what we did before, where we partnered with startups.com and Dribble, and we would put our ads in their email, and we did a rev split, and that worked well. If someone wants to start that business would be great. We quit doing it when COVID happened because we were like, shit, we got to focus. But we did do that, and it made good money.
And you guys did some like pretty mad sponsorships throughout COVID, right? I remember the Portnoy sponsored his live stream, stuff like that.
Yeah, so we sponsored Barstool for Trends. I'm not allowed to say, I'll say, we paid 6 figures to sponsor his Twitter handle for a week, and it performed okay.
Yeah.
It did okay.
It's just like the overlap maybe was
just like,
not as...
His audience was like kind of like just like a bunch of bros, right. And they're just kind of shitheads.
How did the Company Man YouTube sponsor work out?
Who? The Company Man? Is that a specific YouTube channel, Company Man?
It might be. Maybe someone.
So I have a marketing team of only 3 folks: Scott, Matt, 4 now. These 4 guys on our team. So they handle our ad spend, and we hired an agency, and they deploy our money across different YouTube channels. So frankly, I don't know. I didn't even know what Company Man was. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know the results. I know that I just look at what our total spend was and how it performed, what the ROI is. Typically for Trends revenue, we get close to break even. We make very little profit if we advertise. So Trends subscription revenue, the vast majority of it is organic, and we don't pay anything for it. It comes from the hustle. But we do 6 figures in marketing spend a month on it, and that revenue really only breaks even or close to breaks even. And the idea is that we know that 80+% of people renew for the second year, and we're going to make our money the second year.
So here's we missed one. Ben, are you talking about Wombo? Because how's that build going? Because I'll just refresh it on my phone. I'll show him after this. It's good? All right, perfect. This guy's building an app. It's nuts. I'll show it to you after this. It's fun. Cool. Which dump truck channel is most effective for you guys?
Is that Stetson? I know Stetson. I think I know you. Yeah, I think I know that. Yeah. Okay. What channel is most effective? Influencers.
Yeah.
Yeah, like these like little like guys like Jack, like who we've never sponsored, but like people like him on Twitter is like the best thing ever right now. So we sponsored Pomp, that was pretty good. So like influencers.
We got another one.
There's like this weird thing going on Twitter of these like business celebrities. Like you're one of them. Maybe I would be one of them, but like people who have like 50,000 followers on Twitter and they've never advertised before, and you're like, hey Jack, I'll Venmo you $3,000 right now if you just post about
One
this.
tweet, right.
And it usually makes a lot of money.
Yeah, that's crazy. So Brandon asked about other media, so audio, video. You do My First Million podcast.
We do My First Million. That's a podcast that gets listened to by around 500,000 people a month, which is considered maybe mildly big. Not big, but not small. It's like in the medium. And then video, we don't do video. Video is very expensive to do.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a lot of employees and a lot of people. We don't do it. It's not in our wheelhouse, but it's cool. I think if you could have a YouTube channel, I think that's the most valuable media asset you could have.
And like, yeah, you don't push My First Million to YouTube, or do you?
Half-ass.
Right.
We don't do it well.
Right. And like production, you compete on production value a little bit on YouTube for the most part. It's like that's,
yeah,
you gotta put time and energy in.
We haven't done it right. You do have to put time and energy. For us, it was like, let's just be laser focused on email. And we're like that for 3 years. Now it's email and trends. And like we're laser focused on that. We don't really pay attention to social. We don't pay attention to a lot of things, which is not necessarily good, but it is what it is.
Right. What do we say? Which lesson should be the holy grail for media businesses? You got a holy grail lesson for media businesses? Last question there.
I have a lot. I think that media businesses in general are horrible at charging money for customers. And I think that the holy grail is so simple to me, it's a very simple thing, which is treat your media business just like any other normal business, which is you create X value and you want to capture Y percentage of it. So you create value through the written word or through something else. Go ahead and charge money for it and get a customer to pay you money. That is very normal. For some reason in the media world, people are afraid to do that. But if I made this bottle of water, I expect you to give me $2.50 for it, and that is normal. And I don't know why media people don't think that way about their content. And I think they should. So I think that's one of the things with the Holy Grail. I would also say make sure that you have subscription as part of your revenue stream. It is awesome.
How big is the Hustle team right now? We didn't answer that question.
30 people.
Yeah.
We're at 30 people.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that. I said trends.
Which is too small, by the way. We've hired way too slow. We should have 50 people.
Yeah. Across, like, how does that shake out? You think content?
You know how many people write our daily email?
I have no idea.
One.
Wow.
One person.
What? One different person every day?
Trung writes our daily email. That is a total mistake. I should have way more people working on it. I've been way too slow to hire.
How many people should be on that? Because that's got to be his whole day, every day, right?
Yeah, but he's talented. He's a machine. We have an editor.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's not that hard. You know, like you can do it in 5 hours a day. It's hard to do every single day, though.
Yeah. Yeah. If you have
I
an
can
off
log
day
in right now and do it.
Yeah.
But to do it every single day, it's hard.
That's impressive. Right.
So we've underhired significantly, and that is not the right way to do it.
And because it's a daily email, it is like 12-hour lead time every day.
Yes.
Like you can't get ahead of it. Yeah.
So if Trung gets sick, like we're fucked.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, like, you talked about that, I think, on one of the podcasts a few weeks ago, where you said, like, there are media businesses that are, machines that continually need to be fed. Trends is not quite on that same, like, production schedule, right? Where I think it's a weekly report you do.
Oh, you're talking about media and community.
Yeah, just like, when you talk about that.
Yeah, people were like, all these media companies are like, oh, we got a community, we have a community. I'm like, you don't have a community, you have an audience.
Right.
And a lot of people use the word audience and community
interchangeably,
and that's not true. Here's how you know the difference. Stop working for 2 weeks, and does it get better or does it improve? If it gets worse, then you probably don't have a community.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's a fascinating way to think about it. And trends is like, I'm in there. Like, people are really, like, throwing energy into that. Yeah. You're all remote at the moment, right?
Kinda. So we're at my office now, but not we're not allowed to have more than 5 people in the office at a time. So yeah, we're kind of remote.
All right, beautiful. All right, any more questions? We got 5 more minutes.
I think this woman I see her Naomi. Naomi, did you tweet at me recently? Your thumbnail picture looks very familiar.
We're in Austin. I don't know.
Um, I just moved here 2 weeks ago, so I don't even know where we are exactly on airport. I did. See, I knew I recognized that name. Um, we're in East Austin. I just bought a house next to this bar called Lazarus at Chicone and East Ninth, I think it's called. I'm trying to convince Jack to move here. I've convinced like 5 of my friends to move here. Um, we're in East Austin, I think it's called.
It's a cool city for sure.
It's a cool city, but that's where we are. What are some alternative non-mainstream media businesses? I'm sorry, I can't see that.
What are some of the alternative non-mainstream media businesses ways you guys are testing or exploring making money, like subscription based? Love the trends for business enterprise idea.
Yeah, we're gonna do that for sure. We have this new thing coming out called guides. So like we've deployed a team of like 3 researchers against it, and in 3 weeks they're gonna come up with a definitive guide that deconstructs a company. So let's just say we're in year 2012 and Airbnb is this new thing that's like super popular, where you deploy our team against it and they figure out exactly how the company works. Like, do you remember when you were a kid and you saw those books as like of a car and they like deconstructed the car?
Yeah.
That's what we're doing with companies.
Very cool.
And we're charging those on a one-off basis. So like if you're a hotel and you're like, this Airbnb thing is going to eat our lunch, we got to figure this out. And like, oh, this is how it ticks, this is how it works. So we're launching that in January. If COVID weren't a thing, I totally would have launched a co-working business. 100%.
Because the network is just outrageous at this point.
Yeah, and it just seems cool. I think you could do it profitably. So yeah, please kill Gardner. Yeah, so it's actually called, I think if you go to trends.co/guides, you might be able to see the landing page for that. So that's one of the things we're launching. What do you think? It's hard for me to read.
What do you think your most successful employees at the Hustle will do in the future? God forbid they leave.
We've had 2 people leave and start emails. One of them is this, if anyone's sports people here, if they read Axios, Kendall Baker writes a sports newsletter. I don't know if anyone knows what that is. He was my first hire. So I imagine a lot of them are we hire people who are like nobodies and like who we think can be somebody. So Steph Smith, this woman who we hired, she was kind of like a nobody in that she didn't have a brand name, but she was badass. And now she's really popular. I have a feeling people like her are going to go off and start media companies. Or we hire a lot of writers that you've never heard of, and now you maybe hopefully do know who our guys are. And I have a feeling that they're going to eventually go work at the Wall Street Journal or things like that.
Right. What are the first companies you're covering with guides?
The first one's on newsletters, because the first guide was like a prototype. So I tweeted it out and we pre-sold like $60,000 worth of them. And so we were like, well, let's just do email newsletters because we know that business. But I think the next one's going to be like Lambda School. Do you know Lambda School?
Yeah.
So there's this whole it's called Lambda School. It's a free school, and they make their money by taking a percentage of your income over the next 5 years. That's an incredibly interesting business model, and there's not a lot of research on it, so we'll deconstruct it.
Very cool. Yeah, and like your process in doing that, you teach people how to look at those companies in new ways, because I think you know, if a lot of people don't know how to do that, even people that already do that for a living. So how do you do that differently?
Yeah, so we taught a class on it called the Ideation Boot Camp, and it's just like it boils down to this equation that I've said already, but it's basically a business is very simple. It's just an equation, which is you create X value and capture Y% of X. That's like the simplest version of a business.
Mm-hmm.
You create value and you somehow capture a percentage of that value. And there's all these sub-equations on how to do that. And it's like really interesting on figuring out what those levers are and what the variables are of those equations, and what are easiest what levers you can pull. And if you can figure that out, you can spot opportunity in a far more systematic way. The way that I've always compared it is it's kind of like writing a hit song. There's a lot of art involved in writing a hit song, and there's some songs that are totally wacky and they don't make sense, and they're like, well, why are they popular? You know, it's hard to understand. But in reality, 90% of hit songs have a very similar hook, or a very similar are similarly written. They have like an opening. I don't know anything about music, so sorry, I may be totally off in here, but they have like an opening. They have like
Bridge, the chorus.
a bridge, or a chorus, a bridge, and then like the hook. Like it's like a similar structure, and there's really only like probably I imagine like 10 or 20 different chord structures where it's like they're just doing the same thing over, but they're just adding their own flair, textures onto it. That's kind of what a lot of businesses are. Like it's there. A lot of the best software companies are incredibly similar. They're slightly different, but very similar. Same with courses. A lot of the course businesses are all the same. They're just slightly different.
Yeah.
And so you just have to figure out what are the commonalities and take the best and avoid the worst.
And the format of that is going to be like long form.
The first trends one, it's 30,000 words. And I think we tried to hire. Did we try to hire you?
Yeah.
Did they hire you or no?
We're still. I don't know what they're doing.
I didn't know either. Colby's running it, but we have these like it's like a 30,000 word thing, and then we also have broken it up into graphics.
Yeah. That'll be great. I'm looking forward to see it. Brandon says, "How did you get to know Sean?"
I cold emailed him in 2013. Sean used to work for this billionaire that had this fancy office, like literally $2 million worth of furniture, and I wanted to host a dinner there. And I cold emailed them, and I said, I'm going to bring all these... I wanted to host a HustleCon dinner there for the speakers, but I didn't want to pay money. I was like, hey, I'll bring all these people to your office, and there are all these powerful people. Will you let me host a dinner there for free, and you can obviously come, and I'll just bring all these people to you. And he said yes, and we became friends then.
Very cool. The cold email, man. Every friendship can be traced back, almost, to the cold email.
Yeah, me and Jack met on Twitter, I think.
Yeah.
It works out well. Sean, I've known him for a while. Sean's the co-host of my podcast. Right, it's his podcast. It was his idea. I'm his co-host, I guess.
And I'm going to drop the link to this, but Sean interviewed you before you were a co-host 3 episodes in, which the hot dog story and all of that stuff, which I think is badass.
And we got to have you come on. We'll have you come on Monday or something.
Yeah, that sounds good.
But it's a good podcast. It's called My First Million. It has a really cringy name. But the idea was like Sean would interview people about their first million, like their first million users, their first million in revenue, maybe their first $1 million, their first million whatever. Like it was like your first big hit.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of changed because Sean and me would do these sessions every 2 weeks where him and I, and then we would go and get like 2 or 3 experts, and we would be like, hey, tell us everything you know about the Planet Fitness business. And we would just sit around a table and we'd call it like a junto. And we would just sit around the table and just grill this guy constant, because we had a guy who owned a bunch of Planet Fitnesses, and we're like, but this sounds like a scam. Like, is this a scam? And he'd be like, it kind of is a scam. But, like, here's how it works. Like, we would like do these like brainstorm sessions constantly, and then one day a guest didn't show up to Sean's podcast, and he goes, hey, you want to do a junto session live? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And that's kind of how the podcast came out.
No, it's great, man. A lot of people love it. Plenty of people here listen to it, I'm sure. All right. We're at time, so thank you, Sam.
The podcast is the bomb. And so, yes, we have another podcaster on here.
Yeah, Bilal is badass.
His social game is way better than my social game. Bilal, he like sends you this tweet that's like already...
With the little thing that floats in.
Yeah, man, this guy kills it. He does way better job than I do.
Brandon's got a big podcast, yeah.
So Brandon who?
Zhang.
Oh, cool. I'll have to listen to that. And then Stetson Blake is a trends member. Naomi is a new trends member. Naomi, are you, is Haley, is that Ethiopian last name? One of my favorite runners is Haley Gebrselassie, and he has the same name as you.
There you go.
Yes, it's Ethiopian. Yes, Haley Gebrselassie. He's one of my favorite runners out of Addis Ababa. I'm a big Ethiopian fan.
Wonder how many people fell for your email on Thursday.
Well, we
got one here.
She's in it. Bram.
Brandon joined.
So thank you for joining. I appreciate that. I hope we provided you guys a lot of value.
All right. Well,
this woman right here is, how do you say her name? I think I recognize that name.
Lauren Roethlisberger.
I recognize her.
So how can people find you, Sam? Twitter?
Yeah, follow me on Twitter, @Parr.
We're in a race at the moment. This might get you.
I challenged Jack to the first person to hit 100,000, and I'm gonna lose. So His
Or you could put the last leg of the trends promotion. You have to follow Sam on Twitter to qualify for the steal.
Well, that would only get me like 5,000 subscribers or members. So
Every little helps.
Jack's Twitter is just like your talent is just like made for Twitter.
Yeah,
like your visualized value is like built for Twitter. It's unfair.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, you shouldn't have set the
It's
competition
like a 5 foot tall guy competing against a 7 foot tall guy in a dunk contest. I'm just at like a natural disadvantage.
Yeah. Well, there's plenty of time to go. You're thinking of the football player? Just kidding. I joined chat.
I recognize some of these names. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, that was badass. Thanks for dropping bombs.
And we're looking at a lot of people's face. So I see Bram, I see Tim, I see Ben, I see a bunch of people. We see Naomi's
I'm gonna show you Ben.
thumbnail.
I'm gonna show you Ben's app now. This is crazy, man. But I'll show you in a sec. All right, thank you, everybody. We will.
By the way, wait. Let me ask a quick question. Do you guys love this community? Do you guys love Jack Butcher's work? I want to see what they say about your work, Jack. Love it. Yes, hell yeah. Because like, we've been hanging out. He seems like he's got like a cult following. Like his following is huge. I'm pretty sure that like he's significantly under monetizing his brand. Jack's gonna be like, you know how like what's that coffee guy? The guy who has the coffee brand, Bulletproof Coffee. What's his name?
Oh, Dave. What's his name? Dave something.
Dave
Ramsey. No, that's not Dave.
Dave Asprey.
Dave Asprey.
Okay.
Asprey.
So Dave Asprey, he had a blog on like body stuff, hacking your body, and then he launched this coffee product, and it is probably worth $1 billion at this point. I think there's a rumor they're getting acquired for $1 billion. That's what Jack's gonna do. I don't know what you're gonna launch that's gonna be worth that, but you've already got the cult following. You got to figure out maybe like a Photoshop alternative. Or no, you know what Jack needs to launch? You should have launched Canva. That's what you're gonna create.
Oh, we're coming for it.
Mold-free coffee, yeah.
We're gonna SPAC, visualize value.
That would be a good idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, Jack has a cult following. I've learned this over the last few weeks.
All right. Well, absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And make sure you follow Sam on Twitter. Get his numbers up a little bit.
Yeah, I need it. It's not gonna help though.
See you in a bit. Bye bye.